button. Cat, let me just start over. Happy D-Day, conservative Cat.
Yeah, D-Day.
D-Day,
Normandy.
D-Day, Cat.
There's actually this
D-Day.
clip. I'll have to pull it. Donald Trump, he had the German chancellor there in the Oval, and he was talking about how D-Day really wasn't a great day for you. That's what Donald Trump said while he had the
that's priceless.
Overall. So
That's priceless. D-Day wasn't a very good day for you. That didn't work out so well.
And he was just so thrown back by that. You know, the chancellor was just like,
he's probably going, you got to be kidding me.
Well, he goes, whoa. All right. Well, good morning, David. We got so much to cover. I'm going to try to pull up that German chancellor video. But first, I do want to have you react to this. We chatted about this on the phone the other day. And this is McClure, State Senator Steve McClure. And he was talking about this bill. It's called House Bill 2397. Okay, so House Bill 2397. What it does, let me pull this up here. Hold on. It mandates that the Department of Corrections has to annually report hospice and palliative care within its facilities. So what kind of hospice care are you doing? Okay, sounds like a great bill. It was criticized by Senator Steve McClure because it's named after a guy named Eddie Thomas. He's a convicted murderer who threw his victim, the guy he murdered, down an elevator shaft. Okay, or the person he murdered down an elevator shaft. So we are gonna play this. This is a TikTok that Senator Steve McClure posted. Here we go.
A person head first down an elevator shaft, murdering them. I think there has to be a point in this chamber when you recognize that it's very tough. We've got all these bills to try to rename roads for people who died overseas in the military. We've got now IDOT taking away the memorials for DUI victims' families that are there to try to keep the memories of their loved ones still alive. We can't memorialize these people, but we're gonna have a guy who is a gang member who intentionally murdered somebody by pushing them head first down an elevator shaft. I think that's wrong. And I think if this is going to be done, the least that we can do as a body is make the victim's family aware of what's happening and allow them to make a statement or give some sort of a position. Can any of you imagine if your family member was murdered by someone and there's no road named after the family member that was murdered, there's no law to support that family member? I'm guessing there was probably not even a resolution for a celebration of life for this person, but the murderer gets their own act in our state's laws permanently. That's wrong. I urge a no vote.
Okay. So that was State Senator Steve McClure. This was the House bill that seeks to mandate that Department of Corrections, and we all know that this is just a silly bill. They're not going to actually do it, the Department of Corrections, because it's bureaucracy, but they are supposed to report on hospice care within its facilities. That's what this bill does, but really took issue with more so the fact that it was named after Eddie Thomas, who threw somebody down an elevator shaft head first and killed that individual and served lots of time. So, David, why don't you react to that for me, please, and tell me,
Well, I'll tell you right now, Steve, you might want to go back to theatrical lessons because you sure didn't give a compelling argument for your position. I mean, I would say milquetoast. I mean, bottom line is, Steve, you know it, I know it, everybody that resides in the state of Illinois knows it. We are broken. We are spiritually broken, morally broken, fiscally broken. And when Republicans take to the podium and they aren't literally just going all in nuclear, it just bores me. It's like, Steve, this is an issue that you should be so impassioned by, but it should be more it's really just a symptom of what's wrong with Illinois, because what's wrong with Illinois is wrong, unfortunately, with Washington, D.C. These representatives have gotten into a system and it's just mere gamemanship. You know who's really impacted is the victim of this heinous, violent crime. The fact that anyone would even give any consideration to naming a bill after them goes to show you, well, it comes from the party that celebrates violence, kill, stealing, and destroying. So we shouldn't expect anything different. And that should be the message. If Steve wanted to take to the podium, I think he should have, taken to the podium and just said, are you kidding me? You people continue to applaud murderers. You celebrate murder. You celebrate death. You celebrate crime. You get upset when we arrest criminals.
Yeah.
I mean, but more impassioned, Kat, don't you think? I mean, he sounded like the kid that was giving his speech 101. He just didn't do a lot of but he did. He speaks eloquently. I mean, I know Steve. He wouldn't be my senator. I'd work my tail off to make sure that somebody ran against him that was a true conservative and was concerned about returning the values to the state of Illinois of the land of Lincoln.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I'm against this bill. I mean, for multiple reasons. But the main reason that he gave was that it was named after Eddie Thomas.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you could debunk this bill easily, just from the substance, not even just the name, the substance itself. The Department of Corrections, they've got a lot of problems, and you could just begin to ramble off all of the problems within the Department of Corrections, where there are inmates who are attacking correctional officers. There aren't enough reports done about the work that they're doing, and the Department of Corrections is run by a DEI hire, 100%, and they need to get her out of there. And he could have attacked the substance of this bill as well as attacking the name of the bill as well. But you're right, Steve McClure, and a lot of these Republicans will get out there and they'll do kind of like showboating. That's what I call it, showboating. And he did this another time where he held a press conference about Lincoln's New Salem historic site, Petersburg.
Yeah.
So the Illinois
great place. Go visit it. Everybody should go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people actually visit it today. They couldn't answer that question when they were asked, but the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, they said, we need $19 million more to restore this site, this historical site. Given the technology, the digital space, I mean, a lot of people get their history in a different, same with the public libraries, right? You're spending $25 million in Bloomington to build out a public library. And it's like, how many people actually go? We're in a different time period and we have to progress, not regress. And I find it so interesting that they say, we're progressive. But State Senator Steve McClure, he wanted a bill to appropriate $5 million to the site. And then there was a bill to kind of create a new commission, a new board, because they do this all the time. But I did some digging and it turns out, and this is where they said, so the New Salem Lincoln League president, Gina Wolter, she had said, we don't know our visitorship. That's like essentially she was asked about her visitor. She said years ago it was 400,000 per year. And she goes, I have no idea what it is now. And it's like, wait a second, you're the president of the actual New Salem Lincoln League and the site here, and you're in charge of it, and you have no idea what your visitorship is. So why would we think 19 million is what they wanted? The INDR, 5 million was what McClure was trying to secure. But it's like, why would we spend millions on something that maybe 4 or 5 people go to? We don't know, because she didn't know the visitorship. And why would we give you money if you're not even willing to disclose what kind of visitorship? Why would the taxpayers give you money when you're not willing to disclose that? One, it's not transparent. 2, it's probably not worth it if you're not willing to disclose it. But get this, the Capital Development Board database showed nearly $500,000 of taxpayer funds, about $1 million, went to specifically a roof replacement. Now, this is interesting because here's what State Senator Steve McClure said at the time. during this legislative session, he talked specifically about the roof caving in, right? And that's what he said that was needed for the repair. So it's like, wait a second, just, it was in 2021, they got $500,000 to replace the roof and they didn't replace it. So if I give you this money, are you actually going to do it? But it gets to the crux of the issue, which is, I what's going on here, Steve, right? That like we're supposed to be conservative, and if they're not willing to share your visitorship with you, why are you doling out or fighting for taxpayer dollars to go to this place? So anyway, that was State Senator Steve McClure, and after that moment, when I was like, okay, this is a complete joke. You're holding this press conference to get this money, but we know that money is probably going to go to them and then they won't fix the roof, or did they not fix the roof? I don't know, but we're not being smart about that. And right there, I was like, okay, this guy loves to showboat. They brought out quite literally an actor. I mean, this is during the press conference who was dressed as Abraham Lincoln. And I was like, these are a very unserious group of people. And it's all about political theater. They literally brought out an actor during a press conference to act as Abraham Lincoln. And it was just so shocking to me. And after that moment, I was like, he's a showboater. He loves to put on a show. And yes, this bill is awful, but it's awful for so many other reasons outside of the fact that it's named after a convicted murderer who threw somebody down an elevator shaft head first. You could have argued the substance. You could have been stronger. There are strong Republicans, and they're suing actually the state right now over the budget and how it was passed in a very shady way. But David, sorry, cut you off. But
no,
yeah.
you're fine. You're a digger, Kat. You like to dig deep into these things, and I really appreciate that, because it goes to show you how broken we are. Because, like you said, it's bad acting, it's political theater. Here's the nuts and bolts of it. Illinois has a governor in J.B. Pritzker that has not provided his agency. So when you're the governor, you make about 1,000 hires. You have all these different agencies that are under the executive branch, no different than the federal. You've got the executive, legislative, and judicial branches in the state government. Here you have a governor for 7 years that has been unwilling to provide his agencies the data, the statistical data that is needed. Know your numbers, right? You got to know your numbers. If you don't know how many people are visiting New Salem, figure it out. It's like, it just wears me out that people, well, first of all, we're not governed by the smartest people, and I'm convinced of that. But they don't know their numbers. And part of the reason they don't know their numbers, like Susan Mendoza, our state comptroller, says that she cannot prepare her annual report until the auditor general submits his data. The auditor general will say that the agencies under the governor will not report. Kat, that's the definition of broken, but it's more than just broken. It's corruption. No different than the bill being pushed through and, other bills being gutted. I mean, I don't know all the technology, or all the terminology, I should say, of what transpires during this session. But I know one thing: it doesn't take a rocket scientist like Elon Musk to take a look at it to figure out that it's broken. We don't even start having a Department of Government Efficiency in Illinois, because we're just as broken as the $37 trillion in debt that our federal government has. And that's what Steve McClure, if Steve McClure really wants to, if any one of these representatives, especially my friends and brothers in the Freedom Caucus, if they want to attack that podium, all you have to go up to that podium and say, it's pretty simple. We have $10 billion in interest accruing against our pension debt every year. And we have yet to appropriate the money needed to pay our interest payment. So we don't even make our full interest payment on our debt. Kat, that's like you going out and just always running up your credit cards and never, ever paying the minimum payment. Can you imagine what the interest is like?
Absolutely. And like the pension issue with tier 1, tier 2. So there's been a lot of band-aid fixes, and that's what I call tier 2, is it's a band-aid fix, and they're trying to get rid of that. That was an attempt to address the pension crisis. So tier 2 is just like a slightly less pension package, I guess, is how I'd explain it. And they're all up in arms about it, the teachers union and things like that in Springfield, and they're trying to do away with the tier 2. But listen, we need to do this because we can't keep giving out these exorbitant pensions to people because we're in pension debt. We have a pension liability. I don't know how much it is. Is it 130 billion, something like that?
Well, it depends on how you look at it, but it's somewhere in excess of 130 billion. It could be, depending on your source, Wire Points, Illinois policy, it could rise up to 180 billion. It's been underfunded, unfunded since the days of Jim Egger and the Egger ramp going all the way back to 2001. No, we created a debacle. And unfortunately, whether it's at the federal level or the state level, or even the municipal level, or county government, we're not addressing the root.
Yeah.
You're a digger. You're a digger. You like to dig. You got to go to the root. You got to go to the root.
That he was talking about, the Eddie Thomas Act, right? The bill.
Yep.
He didn't get to the root. Really, he was going after the name, and it was named after a convicted felon, which is, but the root problem here is, how is this going to, you're going to force them to kind of, the Department of Corrections, which is to provide a bunch of data points about hospice care, who they're providing care to. And yes, they should be doing that. But really what's ultimately going to happen is it's loaded with bureaucracy, and you want them to produce all of this. And that's going to be busy work that will cost the taxpayer dollars, taxpayers money. And really what they should be focused on is keeping the prison safe, secure, and cost effective. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And they can barely even focus on that. The Department of Corrections, there's all kinds of cases where these prisons are not safe. There's contraband coming in, loads of contraband, and you want them to pretty much act like busy bees and provide you a bunch of data points about who exactly is getting care. So what the bill would do, it's like basic info about the inmates, which is already like something that they should be doing, right? And probably something they already do. So this is duplicative. And you're just going to assign people to do more busy work. And that's going to cost taxpayer dollars within the Department of Corrections, because you got to hire more people to do this and give it to the and put it into a nice little bow.
Increase the size of government units. Just keep building government.
And they want to know how many inmates died in custody, all of this stuff. So all of this stuff is stuff that the Department of Corrections should have been doing anyway. And so this is just a duplicative bill, but also you just want to grow, and you want an excuse to grow the bureaucracy even more with all of these Department of Correction employees to be assigned to fulfill the requirements of this bill, which should already be fulfilled. What do you mean? You don't already collect basic info like gender and age from your inmates? That's BS. I know you do. You just want an excuse for more bureaucracy. And I would have loved to seen Steve McClure take to the floor and actually talk about the substance and the root of what this bill was really about. But he talked about the Eddie Thomas name, which is what it is. It's terrible. We all know that. But let's get to the root of the problem. Which I also want to get your take on the whole Elon Donald Trump debacle here, because people are saying, hey, Elon and Donald Trump need to make up. This is trivial. If they are friends, then they should agree to disagree and move on. Your thoughts here, David?
I'm going to give it, obviously, let's wait till the day's out. I said it from the moment that I heard. I was on a text thread. I think you were on that text thread. I said this is political theater, and played very well by Trump and Elon. Kat, this is a shtick. They are drawing out. Look at what they've done. They've been already able to get Eric Swalwell, or whatever his name is, Fang's boyfriend,
The Chinese
they,
banner.
they've been able to get Democrats to start buying Teslas again and calling for Epstein files to be released. It's brilliance because now the Democrats, it's what is going to be the reaction. And a lot of people said, well, why did they take it publicly? Because these people can't help themselves. They love to live vicariously on social media, whether it's the legacy media, the propaganda media. I say, let's give it till today. Obviously, it sounds like there's a scheduled call between Elon and Trump. I don't even know what that's about. I'm just telling you, no different than my experience at January 6th. I know political theater when I see it. And this is good that our side is finally participating in a little bit of this political theater. Because how do you sometimes you fight fire with fire. And there's a lot that needs to get done unequivocally, without doubt. The big, beautiful bill, which is not the big, perfect bill. It's the big, beautiful bill because it's beautiful, as Donald Trump would say.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be passed. The economy implodes. It doesn't happen any other way. I think G.C. Drano said it best. You have the tariff battles, you have the court battles, you have deportation battles, legislation battles, the deep state backstabbing in your agencies, as you said earlier. The only reason Donald Trump ever went into the presidency or even considered a run for the presidency was because he understood the swamp. What we're talking about, the Steve McClures, the entire zeitgeist of the current government, cultural government, is broken at all levels. I said that earlier. And the deep state is behind it. There's a deep state right here in Bloomington Normal, where you and I are, the Central Illinois, where we reside. Springfield, deep state. Washington, D.C., literally the swamp of all swamps. But the deep state is backstabbing in our agencies. That's politics in the constitutional republic. You got to realize this is part of what makes us unique as a country, a constitutional republic. We have these fights. I would rather know what's happening on a instantaneous basis within our government. We didn't know any of this under the Biden regime.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was in the dark. Everything was a secret. Everything was a lie. You just played Jean-Claude Van Damme and her press, as the press secretary, and her inability to tell the truth ever. Nothing that came out of her mouth was truthful. And that reminds me of someone else that we obviously try to avoid every day is the devil. The devil can't tell the truth. But the deep state that's just part of it. The republic that was rotted for within decades is what he says. This has been going on for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone with a functioning brain, this once again is G.C. Drano, can see how this is going to transform America in less than a year. Kat, we're going to be back better. When they talked about Build Back Better, you're going to see Make America Great Again. By next summer, America will be almost unrecognizable compared to where it was a year ago. The border wall will be almost complete. Our national coffers will be filled with hundreds of billions of dollars from tariffs. Americans will be paying the lowest taxes of their lives. There will be millions of fewer illegal aliens. Crime will be at record lows, and the economy will be booming with all these new manufacturing jobs that got brought back from overseas. Rough seas now, which is what we're going through. I don't know how anybody could ever fathom that we were going to come out of the last 4 years and we weren't going to be selling. And the old saying, you're either going into a storm, you're in a storm, or you're coming out of a storm, and it keeps cycling. Kat, we're in a storm. And the storm came on January 20th of this year, and he brought all the ammunition and the howitzers, and he started to expose what is happening. That's the sad part about our state. We don't have anybody to really expose it. I applaud the Freedom Caucus for filing a lawsuit against this bill that was just pushed through in the dead of night. It's a step, but Kat, what I want to see is I want to see people tearing off their garments, standing on the house floor, pounding on the desk like Jeannie Ives used to do. I give Jeannie credit for that. She goes, okay, before we pass this bill, let's go through it line by line. And of course, there were 3,000 pages, so they'd be there in forever. But, there are rough seas, and it will lead to calm seas later. And just in time, just imagine this. Everything that Trump is currently doing with Elon Musk, with everyone else that's part of his inner circle, and believe me, Elon is part of Trump's inner circle. You're not dancing, you're not having little X dance all the way to Marine One a month ago, and then suddenly you guys are the world's worst enemies. You're not letting your son, little X, be around what you believe is a child predator in having files on Epstein. All of it is a stick. That's my belief. I don't know. It might be legitimate. I think it just reeks of the fact that they are playing the Democrat Party in the swamp.
Yeah, and maybe they are. I really hope that would be the case, because it'd be great if they got along. I mean, I have always said that I don't like Elon Musk.
Yeah,
and it's because I'm very resistant to the type of technology that he wants to introduce. I think that he is a bit of a humanist, has come out publicly, has talked about him being an atheist. Now he has kind of shifted gears and said that I'm a cultural Christian.
There's hope for everyone.
What the hell that means, right? Cultural Christian. Do you believe there's a God or not? And
pray for his soul. Pray for him. Pray for him. Yeah.
But I worry about him being in Trump's inner circle. This guy has abused the H-1B visa system. He is very much for this technology that could be potentially dangerous to humankind, robot, artificial intelligence. And I use ChatGPT all the time. Grok, I love it. It's a lot of fun, and I think that there could be a use for it.
He is pro-life, though, Kat. He
Yes.
doesn't believe he's pro-life.
Yeah, he's what he calls cultural Christian.
And I don't even know his standing.
The fact that there is a God that created the earth.
Well, Jews aren't Christians.
Yeah.
Jews aren't Christians, and there's plenty of good practicing Jews, faithful Jews around the world. I would say on Elon, he is a strange dude. There's no question about it. I mean, I don't think that you and I can even start to begin what's going on inside of this guy's head. But I believe that he speaks of things that are important, like the fact that we have to build upon the base of our economy to make sure that we are replenishing people to be part of this Make America Great Again. We need more bodies. We need people having babies. And Elon is adamant about that. We've got to populate the world. He's not talking about depopulation, which is what they want to do on the other side of the aisle. So I guess you're never going to get a perfect person in government, whether it's Elon, Donald Trump. But what we can do is we can pray for Elon and hope that he truly does bow his knee to the Lord of Lords, the King of Kings, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll have to see what happens. Like you said, they're supposed to have a phone call today, and it could just all be political theater. And I think that with this Epstein thing, because now there's calls to release the Epstein files, and Elon making comments about Trump being on the Epstein files or whatever. Yes, Donald Trump, and this has been a thing. Like, you would think that, okay, they tried to jail this guy. They convicted him of 30 plus felonies, Donald Trump. You would think that if he was incriminated or had a criminal enterprise with Jeffrey Epstein, they would have used that against President Donald Trump.
Yeah, every day of the day and twice on Sunday. They would have been. That would have been our. They have no. Elon. It said Donald's. Donald made the comment. I said, "Get out of here." I got my little Donald out here. This is what he told Elon. You're fired. You're fired.
Well, and he said this to Jeffrey Epstein as well. Of course, he's on some, list that maybe Jeffrey Epstein had, not the client list, but Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, he resided in Palm Beach and he had a bunch of big names. And I believe Donald Trump told him, you got to get out of here because you're being creepy around young girls at Mar-a-Lago.
Jeffrey Epstein, yes.
Yeah, kicked Jeffrey.
Not Elon Musk.
Not
Elon Musk is not creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
hey, Kat, do you know what Trump's putting out on True Social this morning?
What's that?
Well, I'll just read it to you real quick. And because this defines President Donald J. Trump. He doesn't, nothing sticks to him. They call him Teflon Don. Well, that was an old organized crime person named Teflon Don, but he's definitely Teflon. Nothing sticks to him. Prices are down, income is up, our border is closed, gasoline is cheap, inflation is dead, our country is booming, companies are pouring into America like never before. And prior to that, he talked about the New York Times and the Washington Post, how they're talking about polls, and of course, vastly, their polls show Trump's popularity is down. Of course it is, because they're polling Democrats. I mean, net of it is, my point being, he's not talking about Elon today.
Yeah.
That was yesterday. He pivots better than any person that I mean, you got the flag behind it. There's a reason we voted this guy in, because this country needed something to turn the tide.
I think there is an argument to be made that the tax cuts are risky, but it just goes to show you, and I think really what they're trying to do here, if this is a political theater shtick and they're in on it together,
Frank,
if they're trying to weed out the people who truly have this ideology behind them, that that I'm entitled to your money.
Yep.
And they're trying to weed out those types of people who are against this big, beautiful bill, because the only reason why I'd be against it is because you hold that ideology that, hey, I'm entitled to your tax money, and if I don't get your tax money, that's going to cause us to have a deficit, and we need to raise the rates. That's really what their position is that we need to raise the rates. And yes, we have a big deficit, and we need to address the forever ticking
debt clock. Yeah.
Debt clock, right? We need to address that, but
ongoing.
They're not looking at how beneficial tax cuts actually are. Once you provide these tax cuts, the economy is going to come back better. It's going to make America better. So, David, we gotta go. But tell us about the David Paul Blumenshine Show. Tell us a little bit about it, where we find it, and who you are for anybody who's just tuning in.
Okay, the DPB show is on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can always listen or view it at Facebook, X, Rumble, and YouTube. The DPB show, 4:00, runs for an hour. I go an hour, and it's just part of continuing to push the needle, like Conservative Cat, like my friend Ryan Mack, who joins me on the show, the Ryan Mack Show. Also, he's part of boilingpoint.live. My daughter, Hannah, she's got her thing. Ty Smith has his thing. We've got a lot of great young talent, which ultimately was the only thing I wanted to do by having the DPB show, was exposing corruption. And that's what we talk about.
Mm-hmm. Well,
on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 to 5.
That's David Paul Blumenshine at the DPB Show. Type it in your search bar right now. Go subscribe, the DPB Show on YouTube. You can follow him on Rumble, X, Facebook, and it streams to all of those platforms. David, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Kat, I love being here. Go Conservative Cat.
Woohoo!
All right.
Team Conservative Cat and Team Trump. Yes, Ryan. So glad that you guys joined me. I know you've got options. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel today. We're going to be back bright and early Monday morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. As always, bye-bye, guys. Be blessed, and I love you.